A lot of you guys probably seen this screen before. If you guys have, you might have to see it again, or more or less. If you guys ever seen this screen, you might be counting yourself for almost deadly serious computer crash. If you ever seen this screen before, the computer's done. And mostly, it's all means to improper hard drive maintenance. If you ever seen this computer, it's still the same cause. Improper hard drive maintenance. Also depends on what type of antivirus you also have out there. Next few minutes, I'm going to go over hard drive maintenance. I'll actually few things, the concept. My name is Weisler. So few of the resources I actually gathered from is Microsoft Corporation, Seagate Incorporated, and also Microsoft Go, written by Alan Evans, Kendall Martin, and Mary Petsy. A few things I'm actually going to cover over this: different types of hard drives, difference between the hard drive connections, basic hard drive maintenance, options that should be done, and then computer hard drive threats today, such as viruses and everything else. First thing I'm actually going to cover is the internal and external hard drive. A lot of it actually deal with the internal. Actually, that goes inside your desktop. Now, the difference between the internal and external is all the internal is just shoved into a case that looks like the external. All it is just a nice fancy case, whatever they want to put it in. Now, the difference between the internal hard drive is actually it's a magnetic layered disk. All it is just a whole bunch of stacks of disks layered one on top of each other, going over a whole bunch of data. All it is just an arm that flips through a whole bunch of data that you might have. Hard drives range today for, especially the magnetic ones, range anywhere between 20 gigs and 1.5 terabytes. It's the biggest one you can actually buy in the market right now. Now, the other kind that's actually become more relevant today in technology is also called the solid-state devices. These actually go over a lot of times for field computers or people actually on the go, more or less because of power consumption. It takes literally 3/4 less power consumption as their normal actual standard internal hard drive. But the limitations of it is between 16 gigabytes to 128 gigabytes, which nowadays a thumb drive is 16 gigabytes. So technology's there, it's just not really rapidly available. Now, between your hard drives, this is actually what you're going to see mostly on your internal hard drives. These actually go over, mostly what you're going to see is these, what we call PATA drives, or PATA connections. Parallel ATA connection. This is actually the old standard form from 1990 until SATA actually came out, I believe, the very early of 2000s. These actually, they really have limitation of about 100 to 150 megabytes per second over a transfer rate. Now, what's actually common today is what we call the SATA drive. Is what the serial ATAs. These have a transfer rate of about 3 gigs per second. And this is what actually mostly comes standard on most of your desktops and hard drives today. Now, if you notice, you see two different types, SATA and eSATA. The only difference with the eSATA is that's the only one that actually connects into an external hard drive. So if you ever go out and buy an external hard drive and says eSATA equipped, it still transfers 3 gigs a second. What it is you can actually hotwire this thing, not really hotwire, but wire it straight to your motherboard so you can still transfer 3 gigs per second. Now, for some of the other people out there, if you don't have the SATA connection or anything else like that, you still have all your USB connections. This actually has to do with a lot of FireWire. FireWire is really only common found on Macs. The other ones everyone else knows is USB, Universal Serial Bus. This is most common, but the limitations of this is actually only 400 megabytes per second. That's the reason why SATA was actually came out with next. Now, the difference between some of the connections stuff like that, if you can't tell what connection you actually have on your internal or your external hard drive, stuff like that, this right here is the look of the internal hard drive. What you actually notice in the very back is it looks a little bit fatter on the back. And also, if you take a look up close, you see a whole bunch of pins sticking out from the left on the PATA drive. If you actually look at the SATA drive, all it looks like is just a whole bunch of flat bars going across. Should only be two, one for power and one actually for connection. Now, on your external hard drive, this is a good one actually. So it actually shows both functions of the USB and the eSATA drive. You see at the very top where it says USB, keep in mind that only has a transfer rate of 400 megabytes per second, while the eSATA has a good transfer rate of 3 gigabytes per second. Now, since we're going over different types of hard drives like that, if you ever want to go out and buy one, go ahead. Now, a few of the things that actually a lot of people have is hard drive maintenance. This actually can be prevented by some of these very basic things. And one of them actually is disk cleanup. A lot of people don't use these functions. Use these things, ones with the stars, I would use these things if you are an advocate computer user at least once a week. Disk cleanup, all it is, goes through your computer, finds any miscellaneous files that you do have that you probably haven't used in a while. More or less, they're just files that don't even need to be on the computer anymore, and you can delete them. such as your temporary internet files, your cookies, and everything else like that you probably have stored in your computer. So go through and it'll delete them all. Virus and spyware detection, or your cleaner. This needs to be up to date, no matter what you have. Norton, McPhee, ESET, Avira, anything you have out there, this needs to be up to date, and this also needs to be run, should be ran every day, silently in the background of your computer. If it's not, and it's out of date and everything else like that, prepare for hard drive crashes. Now, just your fragmenter. If you use your computer a lot and stuff like that, and you've already erasing and deleting and stuff like that computer from your hard drive, use this, once per week, like I say. But if you don't use it too much, once a month should be fine. What it does is it actually takes all the data that you frequently use and puts it towards the very closest layer of the disk of your hard drive, so it can actually read it very quick. Now, the last one you should actually use is disk error check. This should literally be only done once a month. What it does is sometimes if you ever have an improper shutdown on your computer or whatever, you notice it starts up, says, hey, rolling through disk error check. What it does is it finds all them bad sectors on your hard drive and it reformats them or gets rid of them just so they're not functioning anymore in your computer. Now, today's threats. As I put in front of you guys, a good definition of all of today's threats. I really shouldn't have discovered most of them, but today's threats have actually ranged anywhere from viruses, spyware, adware, trojans, and worms. Each of the definitions are really pretty much the same. The ones you should actually really worry about are definitely your trojans. More or less because trojans come along, and they're actually pretty much like Trojan horse, back from Troy. And when the horse sneaks in, but not until you open an application where most of the damage actually comes from. A lot of your adware today, all that comes from your basic applications that you download most frequently. Anywhere from ICQ, MSN, everything else, that's all considered adware. What it is adware all it is just random online advertising. And that's something you should really try to limit on your computer, more or less, because it does lead to freaking computer hard drive crashes. Last few minutes I've actually gone over some of your basic hard drive maintenance and what you should actually do to prevent them. Hopefully with some of this knowledge, you should be able to prevent such things as a dead hard drive like this, and more or less keep getting them blue screens, that black screen of death. You might end up doing this to your next hard drive. Whoa. Got that one.
Good.